So far, we have discussed many of the built-in features of Python, such as variables, arrays, dictionaries, loops, and classes. And these all come in Python by default, so I don't need to do anything in order to use an array. I can just declare an array. But we can expand on the functionality of Python by using what are called libraries, and these are pre-built packages that include additional functionalities. So to give an example, there is no way in default Python to create a random number, but I can import a library that will help me generate random numbers. So all I need to do is say import random. So random is the name of the library I want to import, and import obviously is importing that. So when I run this script, I now have access to all of the commands that random has. So I can say print random .randint. So the way this works is when you are importing a library, you're basically importing pre-built classes. And so this random library comes with the randint class, which will have the functionality that we're looking for. So I need to specify random.randint because I need to tell Python that randint comes from the random library. So library name.randint. And I can run this, and we can see that it's giving me an error message. Now, while it seems like the error message means that I have failed to do this, this is actually a useful way to learn things. So the error message will tell me what I'm missing here. And the reason I did this wrong was to show you this. I want you to see that your error messages contain important and useful information. So I can see that I'm getting a type error here, and it's in randint. So my randint function is missing two required positional arguments, a and b. So what that means is here in my function, I need to give it some parameters in the parentheses here. And that's going to be your starting and ending number. So I can say 0 and 100. So this is going to give me a random number between 0 and 100. So if I run this again, we can see it picked 89. And I can run it as many times as I want, always getting a new random integer. Now I can simplify this a bit. So you see I imported random, and then I had to specify random.randint. But I can instead just import randint. So I can say from random import randint. And then down here, I don't need to specify random anymore, because randint is brought into my script rather than the entire random library. So if we run this, we'll see that we still get our random numbers. I can go even further and rename this. I can say as ri. So now I can change this to ri, and it will have the same functionality. So I can rename anything that I import with this as command, and that will allow me to change the name of things in my program. One common example is people will say import numpy, which is another Python library, as np, or import pandas as pd. Now, different developers are going to tell you different things about the next thing I say here, so don't just take my word for this. Think about it yourself and experiment. I don't like to do any of this. I want to just say import random. And then I actually want to specify random.randint. And the reason for this is that it makes it perfectly clear what's going on. I am from the random library calling randint and then doing whatever it is I'm going to do with it. So by forcing myself to specify the library name dot the function I want or the class that I want, I find that the program is a little bit easier to read. I typically avoid saying things such as from random import randint, and I especially avoid the as ri or whatever I want to name it. So you have these tools at your disposal. My personal recommendation is to be explicit in your programming. Just to give one more example, let's say we want to print out the date and time. So again, there is no default way to do this in Python, but there is a library that comes with your Python installation. So I can say import datetime, and I can say print datetime, the library name, and then dot datetime, the class, dot now. And this will print out the current time. So what you can see here is that I am using the import statement to bring in a library. Then I'm using these dots to get more and more specific about what I want within the library until I get to this final command that gives me exactly what I want from it. And you can see in the syntax here why people are tempted to say from datetime import datetime. That way you can just say datetime.now. And if you're only using now in your program, I can see why someone would just import that. But again, I just like to be explicit in my programming, so I don't mind typing out all of this for the sake of clarity. Now, in the spirit of clarity, let me explain that datetime as a library does come by default with your Python installation. There is nothing additional you have to do to install datetime or random. A lot of these libraries will come with Python. You do have to import them, but you don't need to install them. And if you go to the Python documentation, you can see that they have a standard library of things you can import. And there are many, many, many libraries for you to pick from. So if there is some functionality that you are looking for that Python does not have by default, check this documentation page, and I'll show you the entire address. So you can check this page and see if there is a default library that exists. In the event that there is not, you can actually find third-party libraries. So one example would be Flask. Flask is a web development tool for building the server-side code for a website. And Flask does not come by default with your Python installation. So before you can import it into your project, you need to go through an additional step to install it. And it's really easy to do. So you just come to your command line and you'll just type in pip3 install Flask. So pip3 is Python's package manager, which it will use to go out and find the download you're looking for. The install command tells pip that you actually want to go out and get the package, and then you specify the name of the package. Now, I am not actually going to run this command because I am not working in a virtual environment. And unless you're working in a virtual environment, you're going to install this package system-wide, which you may not want to do for the sake of keeping your computer clean or for compatibility reasons. I would recommend working in a virtual environment before you install additional libraries. In future videos, I will discuss some of these libraries more in depth, but for now, I think that is a good introduction to what libraries are, how to use them, and what their purpose actually is. That is, to expand on the functionality of Python. And it's, again, quite simple. You simply import it and then use the functionality. So if this video was useful for you, please leave a like. It helps me grow the channel and it will help other people find the video. And again, if you would like to see these tools used in a broader context, I recommend checking out my Developer Diary series, where I am working long-term on big projects and actually putting these tools to use. So thank you for watching, I hope you learned something, and I will see you in the next one.